Mclient is a command line tool used to connect to Monet and to execute SQL queries. We have used Mclient in all of the previous videos, but now we will see how we can make a better use of it. I will first show you how we can get some general information about Monet. If we use Mclient with vSwitch, then we can find out what version of Monet do we have. We can also use Mclient with question mark switch. In that case, we would get help about commands that we can run with Mclient. I will now clean my screen. In one of my previous blog posts, I have created a database farm with the name DB farm in this blog post, and inside of that DB farm, we have a database with the name DB farm DB. I will now go to terminal, I will log in to that database, and I will create some database objects. Objects will be created inside of the sys schema. So first I will start my farm, and then I will set the property of this farm to no, and the property is read-only because I think that this property is still set to yes, and then I will log into this database. My password is MonetDB, so I'm logging in as an administrator, and now I will create first one table with the name Tableau. Then I will create one view with the name Viewer. I will then create one sequence with the name Secure. I will create one function with the name Funco. And I will also create one schema with the name Schema. After this, I will clean my screen. We will now see how we can get some information about our database objects. If I use this command, so backslash and then upper letter D, I would get schema that would create all of my database objects. So we can use this SQL to recreate our database. We can also provide the name of a table after this command. In that case, we would get a schema that would only create this one table. If we want to get a list of database objects, then we would use commands like this one. In this case, we are using command with lower letter D, and after that we are using some other letters. So what is the meaning of these letters? Well, for that I will jump to this web page, and here we can see that N is for schemas, F is for functions, S is for sequences, T is for tables, and B is for views. In my example, I'm providing N, S, and V, so I would get just one schema, one sequence, and one view. But if I had several schemas, all of them would be listed here. If we want to get only views and tables, we can use just lower letter D. So this would return only views and tables by default. So it is the same as if we were explicit and we say we want only views and tables, we would get the same result. If we want to get system views and tables, in that case, we should provide this upper letter S. In that case, we would get system tables and views and user tables and views. So it is the same as if we were explicit, and if we provided letters V and T, we would get the same result. We can also be specific. So for example, we can only ask for system and user tables. In this case, we would get all of the tables from our database. We can get SQL dump for some database objects that have specific name. For example, with this command, I would ask for all of the tables and sequences with the name Tableau. And I only have a table with this name, so for that table, I would get SQL dump. Now, the name that we are asking for should be written with lower letters. And if we have some upper letter inside of the name, then we should use double quotes around the name. We can also use wildcards. For example, this is how we would ask for all of the sequences and tables that have a name that ends with the letter O. We can use star that will represent several letters, or we can use underscore that would replace only one letter. I will now run this, and I will get my sequence in my table. Now, if we are using double quotes, in that case, we cannot use wildcards. For example, if I use star inside of double quotes, this will not work, and now I will get an error. I will now clean my screen. Let's now see how we can format the result of the query. In each example, I will use this query, so we will read from this system table, and first we will start with a mode where we will not return anything. So I'm using command \f, and then I'm using mode trash. I will run this, and after that I will run my query, and this query will not return any result. It will return nothing. Similar to that, we have row count mode. If we use row count mode for the format, in that case we would only get number of rows for our query, so we would get this number 4. Next we have default mode, and default mode is SQL. This presentation is already familiar to us because this is default presentation that we already saw. Then we have mode expanded. In this case, records will be organized vertically, so we would get the result like this one. Then we can get comma separated values as a result with CSV mode. Again, I will run my query, and this is the result. And similar to that, we can use tab. In that case, separator will be tab. I will run my query, and now we have tab as a separator. Row mode is a way how our database is natively returning the result. So I will now be in the row mode. I will run my query, and this is how our database is natively returning the result. Next, we can see XML mode. So I will set my format to XML, and again I will run my query, and this would be the result just like some XML document. Next, I will show you that we can choose separator for CSV format. So I will now use CSV is equal to C, and C will be separator. So if I now run this, and if I now run my query, we can see that C is returned as a separator. We can also notice that the word public is inside of double quotes because this word has letter C inside of it, so we have to delimit this word with double quotes. We can also use something similar, and it is CSV plus C. We would get the same result. So this and this would return the same result, just in this case we would have a header. So I will run this, I will run my query, and now we have a header, and header is also using C as separator. For next example, I will use this query. So I will read from this other system table. And first I will go back to default presentation. So I will use SQL mode, and then I will run my query. And this query will show us one column. This column is specific because it has these double quotes. I will now change this to CSV. So if I now use CSV mode, and if I run my query, I would get the same result as this one, but now I have my double quotes escaped. But there is also one special CSV mode, and that is CSV no quote. That will return the result without escaped double quotes. So I will now again run my query, and I would get CSV result but without escaped quotes. I will now clean my screen. If we run some big query, the data will just run before our eyes. We wouldn't be able to see anything. We want to control how many rows will Monet show to us at a time, and for that we will use paging. I will first change format mode back to default, to SQL, and then I will show you one system table that we will use in the next examples. So I will read from this table, and we can see that this table has 7 rows. And now I will start to use paging, and for that we are using R command. I will say that my page should have 4 rows. I will run this, and then I will run my query again. I will run it, and I would get the first page with only 1 row. So why this first page doesn't have 4 rows? Because of the bug. So this is a bug. Because after this I can use continue, quit, and next. I will use next, so I will type N, and then I will press enter. And only now I will get a page with 4 rows, and after that I will just press enter. So we don't have to use n because n is default. I will press enter and I will get the rest of the rows. In the first page we will always get this number -3. So 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. If instead of 4 we use, for example, 2, 2 minus 3 is less than 0, in that case this first page will be empty, so this is obviously a bug. Next, we will see what will happen if we use continue and quit. I will now again start my query, and now I will type C. So I want to continue. I will press enter, and we will normally end our query. We can also use quit, so I will again run this query. I will type Q and then enter, and we would end our query. I will now clean my screen, and for the next example I will make my window really small. Now that my window is small, I will change this add command to 0 mode. And then I will clean my screen, and then I will run a query. But this time I will use other system table. I will use system table sys.keywords. I will run it. And 0 mode means that we will only see as many rows as it can fit onto window. And because my window is really small, in that case I will only see 2 lines. I will now press enter 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and then I will maximize this window. And we can see here a problem. Only for first table we would get 2 lines, which is how much we can see in our window, but for all other tables we would see 5 lines. So here we have some offset by 3 bug that affects this paging. I will now quit this query, and now I will turn off paging, and for that I will use -1 argument. So I will use this, and now paging is turned off, and I will clean my screen. Now we will see how we can control how many columns will Monet show to us of the query result. I will now reduce the size of this window, so I will reduce it a little bit, and then I will set my command to -1, and command is W for a window, and -1 means that Monet now thinks that my terminal has unlimited width. So it thinks that my terminal is really wide. So if I now run a query, for example, if I read from this system table that has a lot of columns, I would get this result. And this is a little bit squishy because my terminal cannot handle as many columns as this table has. But if I buy a bigger display, and if I maximize this terminal window, in that case this presentation would become normal, because then we would have enough space to show all of the columns. Next we will see default setting. In this default setting I will first clean my screen. This default setting is 0, so we will set width to 0. This means that Monet will try to show as many columns as it can fit inside of this window. So I will again run my query, and this query is too wide for this window, so we will only see columns at the start, and 7 columns will not be shown. So we are not presenting the whole table. We can also use a positive number for argument, so we can use W with 50. In this case, Monet will only show us the first 50 characters. So I will again now run my query, and inside of the first 50 characters we can only have first 4 columns, because this here is approximately 50 characters, so we can only see 4 columns at the start. All other columns will not be shown. I will now maximize this window, and I will clean my screen. We will now see 2 more commands that will affect execution of our queries. We know that in Monet, auto commit is by default turned on, but we can also turn it off. For example, I will run this command, I'm using A, but I'm using lower A. And this command will turn off auto commit. After this, I will run some statements. So I will first insert a value inside of my table. I will run this statement, and then I can roll back this statement. I can roll back it because it is not committed, because auto commit is turned off. So this is not committed. So I can use rollback, and after that I can try to read from my table, but I will get nothing because I have rolled back my changes. The opposite command is with upper letter A, so this will again turn on auto commit. So I will try again to insert into my table, and then I will try to roll back, but I will fail because this change is already committed. So rollback will not work, and if I try to read from my table, I will obviously see the number 2 because it is auto committed. I will now clear my screen. I will now quit this session because I want to clear my history. Then I will log in again. So I will log in. My password is MonetDB. And then I will show you how to enable logging and tracing. Logging and tracing are used mostly for debugging. First, we will turn on logging. So I will use command \l and then full path toward the file that will have our log. So I will run this, and then I will turn on tracing with upper letter X. After this, I will run one statement, and after this statement we will see what is tracing. So all of these lines explain what Monet has to do in order to run our statement, and we have a lot of these lines. And similar to this, we can go here to desktop, and here we have our file with the log. I will open it, and similar to that, we have some lines here that explain what Monet is doing. I will now go back, and now I will disable logging and tracing. For logging, we just have to run \l without providing full path. And for tracing, we can provide / and then upper letter X and then false. After that, I will run 2 more statements. So I will run select 3, and I will run statement select 4. I want to show you now history command. So I will now use / and then history, and this will list all of the commands and statements that we have run inside of this session. So if I run this, we will see this command, statement, and so on. So everything that we have run inside of this session. I will now quit this session because I want to change current directory. So I will quit. Then I will change my current directory to desktop. I will do this, and then I will log in again. I will log in. My password is MonetDB, and I will clean my screen. In Monet, it is possible to send the result of a query to shell expression. For that, I will use this command. So here I'm using pipe, so the result of query will be sent through pipe to this shell expression, and this shell expression will modify our data, and then such transformed data will appear here in the terminal. So I will run this, and then I will run one query. This query would normally return 2 rows, but now it will only return a row with the word alpha, and this is because the result will go through this shell expression. We can disable this command by running it again, but without the shell expression. Next, we will see that we can send the result of a query to a file. And for that, we will use this command. So after this command, we should provide the name of a file. And this file will appear in the current directory, and our current directory is desktop. So I will run this, and after that I will run one query, and the result of this query will not appear here in the terminal. We don't see our result here, but if I now go to desktop, here is a new file, and inside of that file we can see the result of our query. I will close this, and then I will go back, and I will disable this command by running it again, but without the name of a file. We can also do the opposite. We can create a file that has some statements inside of it. So I will now go to desktop, and here I have one such file. Inside of this file, I have a statement, and I can call this file and I can execute all of the statements from that file. So I will do that with this command. This command will read from our file, and then it will execute all of the statements. So we would get here the result. But the problem is that here we have the result, but we don't see what statements return this result. And to solve this problem, we can use echo command. So I will now run echo command. And what this echo command will do? Well, if we run some query, for example, I will run this query, then after that, we will get the statement and then the result. Now, in this case, this statement is repeated twice, and that is unneeded. But what if we read our statement from a file? For example, I will again run that command that will read statements from this file, and then it will execute them. In that case, we would get the statement and the result, and now we know how we created this result. Next, I will quit this session, and then I will again log in, because this is the only way to disable echo command. So we have to quit and then to log in again. My password is MonetDB, and I will clean my screen. We will now see some other backslash commands. If we run backslash and then a question mark, we will get a list of all of the backslash commands. If we run backslash and then the word help, we will get a list of all of the SQL statements. Next, we will talk about timing. In one of the previous blog posts inside of this one, we already saw how to turn on timing when we start Mclient application. But now we will see how to turn on timing inside of the Mclient application, and for that we will use \t command. And then we have to provide mode. Mode can be none, clock, or performance. By default it is none, so I will change that to clock mode. I will run this, and then I will run some query. And after I run this query, I will get the result, and then I will get total time needed for this execution. We can also use performance mode. So I will now use \t and then performance, and then I will again run my query, and we will get this result. This at the end is the total time needed for execution of this query. And this here is a structure of that time. This is the time needed to parse this SQL statement. This is the time needed to optimize this statement, and this is the time that is spent in execution of this statement. If we want to disable timing, then we should use command \t and then none. This will disable it. And if we want to see what is the current timing mode, then we should only use \t. So this will return the current timing mode. At the end, we can exit our session by using \q. So this will lead us out of this session. I will now clean my screen. When we want to log in to Monet, we have to provide our credentials. So we would use options for IP address, for port number, for username, and for database. But there are many other options, and we will now see some of them. We will limit ourselves to only those options that have counterpart in \/ commands. First, we will see how we can create SQL dump of our database, and for that we will use this option with upper letter D. So I will run this, I will provide my password, and this is our SQL dump. So this is the same as \d command is. Next, I will turn on tracing and logging. So for that, I will use options X and L. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and here we can already see tracing. I will immediately quit this session, and I will tell you that this is the same as \/ commands X and L. Next, we will see three options. So I will show you this command. So we will set format of the query result to expanded. We will set timing to clock, and we will turn on echo repetition. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB. And now I will run one statement. I will read from my Tableau table. And here we can see that we are using expanded presentation, and we also have clock. I will now quit this session, and I will tell you that these options are the same as / commands F, T, and E. Next, we will see option that can turn off auto commit, and for that we will use this option with lower letter A. So this is how we can turn off auto commit, and this is the same as / command / and then lower letter A. Next, we will see how we can control number of rows and number of columns. So I will use options R and W. After that, I will provide my password, and then I will run one statement. So we will read from this system table, and this will be the result. I will quit this, and then I will quit this session. And this is the same as when we are using / commands R and W. Next, we will see how we can send all of our query results to shell expressions, and for that we should use this option here. Now notice here that this pipe has to be escaped because we are now inside of the shell, and then under single quotes we will provide our expression. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and then I will run one statement, and we will see that this is working. I will now quit this session, and I will tell you that this is the same as this / command. So this would give us the same result, and then I will clean my screen. I will now log into Monet, and I will use three new options: Z, N, and H. I will run this. My password is MonetDB. And then I will run statement select current time. This statement will return my current time as a timestamp. But this time here is not the same as my local time. And this is because this is Greenwich time. This is not my local time. Monet will ignore my time zone. And that is because of this Z option. Next, I will run statement select null, and as a result I will get 0. So null is presented as 0, and this is because of this option here. But I must tell you that this will only work if format is SQL, CSV tab, or expanded. Now in this session I have run two statements, this one here and this one here. And because of this history option, both of these two statements are recorded. So I will go here to this folder. Here I have one file. If I open this file, inside of it I have a history of my statements. I will close this file. I will go back, and I will quit this session. And then I will log in again, but I will again use H option, and I will provide my password. And although I am now in the new session, I will have my history of statements available. So if I now use arrows on my keyboard like this, I can browse through my history. I can also run some new statement like select 55, and this new statement will also be recorded inside of this file. So now we have that statement too, so we can now use it again, or we can use these old statements. Everything is inside of our history. I will now clean my screen. I will now create one table, industrialist table with column industry. And then I will try to fill this table with data from the internet. So from the internet I will download this CSV file here. Then I will use copy into my table. So I will place the content of this file into my table, and I will use this mode on client. I will run this, and this will fail. So Monet will not allow this. But we can change that. We can quit this session, and then we can log in again. But this time we will use R option. So I will use upper letter R. I will run this. My password is MonetDB. And then again, I will try to use copy into statement like this. And this time it will succeed. And this is because of this R option for remote. I will now try to read from my table. And we will see that now we have data inside of this table. I will clean my screen. I will now quit this session, and then I will create SQL dump. So I will use this upper letter D option to create SQL dump of the whole database. I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and we will see here that I'm using statement copy into table from standard in, and then I'm providing data. So we can fill our table with data in this way, but we can also use insert into. In order to get SQL dump with insert into statement, we have to provide an option. So I will again run my command, but this time I will add this option upper letter N for insert into. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and now I'm having insert into instead of copy into. I will now clean my screen. We can directly run a statement from the shell. For that, we will use S option, and then we will provide our statement. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and we will get the result. Instead of that, we can also run a script. So we don't need now this S option. We don't need it. We just have to provide the name of a file. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and we would get the result. It's also possible to run both the statement and to run some script. So I will first run my statement, and then I will run script. So I will press enter. My password is MonetDB, and I would get both of the results. When we are running a statement directly from the shell, we can use many of the options that affect how some query will be executed. For example, we can use this option N that will change null to 0. And this will also affect our statement. So I will run this. My password is MonetDB, and we would get 0 instead of null. For next example, I will make a little change inside of my SQL file. So I will go to this SQL file script. I will open it, and I will place one / command inside of my script. I will save this, and I will close this. I will go back, and I will now try again to run my script. So again, I will use this command. I will run it. My password is MonetDB, and I will get an error. And this error is because of that / command. So we have to change something for this to work. So I will add one more option. I will add this interactive option, and this option means that Monet will be able to interpret that / command. So if I now run this, I will provide my password MonetDB. I will get this as a result. So now that command was interpreted as / command, so my format is just like XML. I will now clean my screen. In one of the previous videos, we have talked about .monetdb file environment variable. And we also talked about a file in which we can place our credentials so that we do not have to type them each time. And such file can be also used with Mclient.